Ultimately, we live the stories we tell ourselves. And the cause of climate change, to a large degree, is because we have been telling one another the wrong stories. We have been telling each other the story of modernity, of extractive development, of capitalism, of consumption. And one way of addressing climate change is precisely by changing the story. And perhaps vernacular knowledge traditions, indigenous knowledge traditions, is one way through which we can operate outside the currently dominant framework and change the story. We have about 20 minutes or so left. I have a few questions myself, but let me not take too much advantage of my role here, and let me first open up the floor for questions. I think we haven't heard any of the students today. I think this might be a good opportunity for one of them to take the floor.
No questions is good, huh? No questions is good, sir.
If not, then I do take advantage of my position here, and I ask the first question, which is for Dr. Nawang Norbu. And sir, I would like you to reflect very briefly on food security and food systems in Bhutan, and how these may be threatened or affected by climate change, and both in terms of production as well as in terms of consumption.
Oh, that's a big one. I don't think we'll have time, but I think for us, for the Bhutanese context at least, almost 100% of our farmers are smallholders, which means they have lands which are like less than 5 hectares. Some even have only less than a hectare. That puts us in a very interesting and a unique position. So the strategies we have to design is not only from a production perspective. One of the proposals we made is we need to facilitate aggregators. I personally think that we should do away with all the roadside stalls. I don't think our farmers should waste their time on the road. I think there should be people who pick up the products from the farm roads, package them. So aggregators, I think we should focus a little bit more. I think, Yele, if you allow me, I'll stop there, because otherwise I could, go on and on for now.
Thank you, Doctor.
I'm trying to convince the moderator that if there are no questions, it's really good.
Yes, please.
This is not so good.
Hello. Kuzuzampula. I'm a second-year law student at JSW School of Law, obviously. So my question is to Madam. My question is, what do you think is the best way to empower and educate our local communities about climate change, all the while keeping our basic values of compassion and kindness intact?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Basically, the communities know a lot more about climate change than us, at least than me. When we go to the field, they tell us that this particular new bug showed up in our field today or this season. We haven't seen this before. So they're at the moment not able to link it to climate change, but then they know the effects of climate change that's impacting their lives. So for us as researchers or as social workers, if we go in and help document those sort of things and help them understand all this is because of the rise in temperature or is because of, and these things collectively are called effects of climate change. So in those manners we're able to try and use their knowledge to make them understand better what's happening vis-a-vis the climate change. So I guess you really have to sit and engage with them, because all these details don't come up in just one short interview, not even through an in-depth interview with the community, the elders. So you have to be there. The Tarayana field officers have all started promoting citizen research. So sort of getting all the farmers in those communities to look out for new things, what's different from last season to this season, and information on yield, which could be, is it because of your input, is it because someone fell sick in your family and therefore less labor and things like that. So you rule it out. And then what else is remaining that's different, then that could be not 100% sure, but if it's aggregated across so many communities and if it's telling the same story, then we have a case there. So things like that, it's sort of, we can't just educate them theoretically, it doesn't work, and therefore we use their knowledge gathering and their experiences to inform us of what's their lived reality and try and put the science behind that. So I don't know whether I answered your question or confused you more on that.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
Hello, La, Kuzampa, everyone. I am Mishitama, final year law student here at JSW. First of all, thank you so much, La. I really enjoyed your presentations. It has been illuminating, and I feel all my colleagues, all my friends here share the same feeling. The question that I have is, I'm sorry if I'm going off hook, but because of the term building resilience, I'm captivated by that word. So my question is, how far do you think Bhutan has come? While we say there's a lot being done about advocating for the impact of the climate change, I want to know how far we have come in building a resilient society that would, at least for that matter, reduce the impact that we are currently facing now.
He's sort of the expert on that, but since he's pointed it my way, Yushe, I'm happy that you asked this question also, because it's true when we allow people, we give them, I'll just share another small story. I think Ngaong has heard this before, but I'll just share this. There was this lady in Ruka, in a village in Wangdi, who didn't dare to dream of living in a good house, a solid home, other than her one-room bago. So her dream was to actually sit out and watch from the first floor windows, watch her grandchildren play. And so that dream, so my boss said, why don't you dream, if that's your dream, that's a very good dream. He said, but I dare not even say it out loud, So Her Majesty gave, according to her, the permission to dream that dream, and then it realized for her. So for her, she keeps saying that because of that permission to dream, and that I thought was something, I hadn't seen it that way before. So when we empower community members to look after their own well-being, and not to expect for someone else to come out from outside and come and help them, outside of their community or outside, or from government or from anywhere else, So that intrinsically we were a society like that before, because we had to look out for the survival of the entire community, because we functioned as a community, we didn't function as one individual. So if there was one young child in the community, all the elders felt it was their responsibility to make sure to point him or her in the right direction. So coming from that to the current scenario of each one trying to get ahead of the other, that shift, I don't know, the resilience factor as a community, you have your strengths, and your weaknesses. So you focus on the strengths in the community as a collective and it works. But when you're an individual and you're out there fighting for yourself, then from a community point of view, they feel that this individual is out there trying to do it on their own, and he doesn't have the support of the others, he might not make it. So with that thinking, in our communities, they still feel and think together. Now when we go as change agents and we listen to them, it's such a beautiful story that we want to foster that. We want to really encourage, because that is how they lived in the... If I have a little bit more of paddy and someone else has Ema, then we're exchanging it inside that community. This was, the barter system pre the monetized economy era. So when the money started showing up, and if you worked harder, you got more, then you're not working harder to help your neighbor. You're working harder for yourself. And so things, when new elements come in, no one's there to explain what might happen. Now, for instance, when cordyceps harvesting was legalized as a gift from the throne, and because we needed to really protect our highlands and improve the living standards of the highlanders, that was such a good thing that happened for the highlanders. But where we failed is we forgot to inform them or teach them how to invest the new money that they were suddenly they found themselves aflush with. So things have to go in tandem, and if you're introducing something new, then you really have to think it through carefully so that this new introduction then does not end up in creating more problems, more alcoholics, more, if it's only spent on consumption areas. Someone should have been there to show them how to invest it, and maybe have a barista in Laya so that all the tourists could come and leave some of their dollars behind, or invest in a cooperative shop so that goods can be bought right there in Laya. They didn't have to come down. I don't know. These are some of my thinking of how you can build resilience in communities when you start thinking for the whole, as a whole, rather than as individuals. That one point. But the other point is your confidence. You should not give permission to anybody to destroy your confidence, either as an individual or as a member of the community. So that, which means, again, it's related to respect. Self-respect as well as respect for the others. And so long as that mutual respect is there, everything works well. But if you're in that exploitative mode, which normally you think the extractive economies and things like that show you that that's how you have to do. But if you do that, then you sacrifice on certain other aspects, and how does that impact your own survival, your own, as a collective, not just as an individual. So that the resilience creation of what I was mentioning earlier was more from the collective, from small rural villages. The only way they can survive is working together, in collaboration, through partnerships. And I feel we are such a small society. Bhutan is such a small country. Like, our entire population is not even the population of a sub-district just across the border. So we would be better off if we're working together as collectives, as one family. I think we would get ahead much faster if we take everybody on board and move in that direction. So from the community voices, that is what is working for them. So when it comes to the urban areas, I don't know how that would apply. So my experiences are only for rural Bhutan.
Just to add on, I really loved what Madam Chimay said about the ability to dream. And I think not only the ability to dream as individuals, but the ability to dream as a country. And I think for the country, I think Bhutan should dream about securing the basics at least. So when you talk about climate change, like I was mentioning in my PowerPoint, I think first is energy. Right now, most of our power is coming out of hydropower. In the next 30 to 40 years, if the glaciers are really going to melt, how do we adapt? The things have to start now. What about food? Right now, everything is imported from India. How do we make sure that we have a food system in place which at least secures our well-being? Energy, food, water. Then we can build the other things, like SAMU, like the creative industries, like Denker's Getaway. We can build on that. I think we need to have the ability to dream as a country. And I think resilience can be built on that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one or two more questions. Yes, please.
Hello. Kuzampala. My name is Sri Yangdon, and I'm also a final year student. One of the speakers presented about 8 recommendations to mitigate climate change. So one among them that I'm curious about is regarding economy around nature. So what would be, according to you, would be a step-by-step measure in order to upscale, in order to ensure scaling of economy associated with nature? So that's my question to Sarla.
I think just like Yele's question, this one is a big one. And I think maybe in the morning, my previous boss, Tashchensu, talked about the Bhutan for Life project. So that's one of the kind of projects we talk about. So one of the things when we did design the project, was to look at nature and the protected areas of Bhutan as centers of good governance, as centers of enterprise. So you can talk about everything from high-end ecotourism packages, yeah, to really upscale the economy. But the other thing which I'm really pushing for is, how do we maximize the carbon out of the forest which we have right now? We need to get the money in, right? Because Bhutan right now we are not in a very good position, if I may say so. So things like that, yeah.
Right, thank you. Maybe a final question, if any. If no further questions, I will request both speakers to offer their final reflections or an afterthought or a concluding comment. Maybe I can start with Dr. Nouwen.
What should I say? Thank you all for listening. I listened to this master called Zongsa Jamin Khense. He always said that you have karmic debt, that you had to listen to someone like me. Hope it was enjoyable. Thank you so much.
I think we have been all very privileged to listen to you instead. Amjri?
Just because we are in the GSW, where we have lots of students who would be, making sure that our justice system is good, clean, sustainable, and that at the moment, I think we read in the papers, or you read, that the belief or the confidence in our current justice system is not altogether there. So we leave it in the younger hands to really clean up and make sure that justice is available to one and all, including climate justice. Who knows? Maybe that would be a big factor in the years ahead, when resources become really, really difficult. That would become a very, very important area. And justice delayed is justice denied. That's the common saying that we grew up listening to. But in our own case, I think you have this huge responsibility as the cream of the crops going out to uphold constitutional rights of every citizen, and climate justice being one. But every other justice that's the rights that's enshrined in our constitution, we hope and trust and pray that you would be good upholders and upkeepers of that. Climate justice is just one of those elements, I think. I'm just taking this opportunity to advocate for, your commitment to a clean judicial system. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. I think there are several takeaways from this session, but certainly one of them is that we have to create a dialogue between community and policy, community and law, community and climate, community and governance. And if we leave community out, I think both of the speakers have made that point in different ways, then we will never be able to adequately address climate change in a way that is sustainable. Right? We talk a lot about sustainable development, but perhaps we should also talk about sustainable intelligence that has to precede sustainable development, inclusivity and justice. I would like to thank the two distinguished speakers for today, for this session, as well as the participants, the audience. So thank you everyone and have a good evening ahead. Thank you.